One day, you look around and realize the world has thinned out. Not in a tragic way, just in an honest one. The phone rings less. The calendar is lighter. The people who once filled your days now drift in memory more than in conversation. You're older, yes, but that's not why it's quieter. Life has a way of rearranging your relationships the same way it rearranges seasons. Some friends stay for the whole year. Some only belong to the spring. And at some point, you look up and think, where did everyone go? But the deeper question, the softer one, is this. Why does this feel like loss, when maybe it's actually a kind of growth? Here are the 5 types of friends you often lose as you get older, and why it's not just okay, but sometimes necessary. These were the friends who were close because life placed you side by side. Like two plants growing from the same soil, your roots naturally tangled, not from intention, but from proximity. You worked in the same buildings, walked the same neighborhood loops, stood together at school plays and holiday programs, grumbling about the weather and laughing at the chaos of raising children. Your connection was stitched into the everyday, the shared routines, the predictable rhythms, the familiarity of seeing each other without ever having to plan it. But convenience is a powerful illusion. It feels like closeness until the structure holding it together quietly dissolves. The job ends. The kids grow. The neighborhood changes. The reasons to cross paths no longer exist. And suddenly, the friendship fades. Not because anyone chose distance, but because the world around you shifted its shape. It feels strange, like reaching for a familiar doorknob and finding the door no longer there. Not painful exactly, just tenderly disorienting. Philosophers sometimes call this situated connection. Friendships that emerge from circumstance rather than depth. They are real. They matter. They hold years of laughter and stories, but they belong to a specific time, a specific you. And when that time passes, the friendship often completes its purpose. This isn't failure, or rejection, or loss in the tragic sense. It's simply life, changing, evolving, asking you to step into new seasons with a lighter, clearer heart. Some friendships are chapters, not entire books. And that is okay. You've had friends who didn't just lean on you, they rested their whole weight on your shoulders, often without realizing how much strength they were borrowing. You became their confidant, their emotional landing place, their anchor in every storm. You listened at 2 a.m. when their world was falling apart. You showed up when they needed help, moving, or deciding, or simply surviving their day. You absorbed their worry, their doubt, their heartbreak, not because they used you, but because you cared. But there's a quiet truth that arrives with age. Your emotional energy is no longer something you can give away freely without cost. You start noticing the difference between being supportive and being drained. You recognize that some friendships were built on a pattern, you holding them up while they rarely asked how you were doing. And when you finally step back, when you stop being the lighthouse guiding them home, the friendship changes. Sometimes it dwindles. Sometimes it disappears. Not from anger, but from imbalance. You realize you were never in the center of the relationship. You were the scaffolding, holding someone else's life together. Letting go of that role doesn't make you selfish. It makes you honest. It says, I love you, but I can't carry you. It says, I deserve reciprocity. It says, my well-being matters too. This isn't abandonment. It's liberation, for both of you. You free yourself from being the perpetual rescuer, and you give them a chance to stand on their own legs. And if the friendship doesn't survive the shift toward balance, that's simply truth revealing itself. Some people were attached to your strength, not to your soul. You are allowed to outgrow that. Some friends loved you, truly, sincerely, but they loved a version of you that no longer exists. They loved the you who swallowed their discomfort just to keep harmony, the you who said yes when your whole body meant no, the you who tried so hard to be agreeable that you sometimes disappeared in your own life. They were comfortable with the version of you who made yourself smaller to fit the space available. But time, that great sculptor, reshaped you. You grew into someone who understands your needs, your limits, your values. You stopped apologizing for taking up space. You let yourself evolve into someone more whole, more honest, more internally aligned. And while you changed, some friends didn't change with you. They kept speaking to the person you used to be, expecting old patterns, old habits, old versions of compromise. They held on to the old script even as you began writing a new chapter. This kind of drifting doesn't mean the friendship was false. It means it was rooted in who you were, not who you've become. And that's okay. There's a quiet maturity in recognizing that you have outgrown a dynamic that once felt like home. Sometimes you outgrow people not because you're superior. That's never the point. But because you're finally becoming more yourself than you ever allowed yourself to be. Growth changes the shape of relationships. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is let an old version of connection rest where it belongs. In memory, not in the present. Some friends belong to very specific chapters of your life. Chapters that have since closed, even if the friendships didn't realize it. There were the friends of your restless years, the party years, the loud years, the years when you mistook momentum for meaning. There were the friends of your striving years, when work defined worth and exhaustion felt like achievement. There were the friends of the parenting in the trenches years, bonded by school pickup lines, playdates, shared fatigue, and the urgency of keeping tiny humans alive. There were the friends you met in places you no longer return to, the bars, the gyms, the clubs, the committees, the noisy rooms where you tried to belong. These friendships were real. They were needed. They were right for who you were then. But life has distilled you, refined you, softened you in profound ways. You no longer chase stimulation just to fill the quiet. You no longer say yes out of obligation. You no longer stretch yourself thin to earn belonging. Your values have become quieter now, more grounded, more intentional, more rooted in peace than performance. And some friendships simply don't survive that kind of evolution. Not because anything went wrong, but because everything changed. These friends were companions to a particular identity, versions of you that served their purpose, but are not meant to be lived in forever. There's a bittersweet elegance in acknowledging that. Every version of you had its people, its laughter, its rituals, its shared truths. And every version of you deserved companionship, even the versions you've long outgrown. But you are not meant to remain every version. You are meant to keep becoming. And as you do, some friendships gently fall away, not as losses, but as completed chapters in the long, astonishing story of your life. Sometimes you lose friends because your lives simply drift in different directions. One builds a busy family. One dives into a demanding career. One moves across the country. One falls in love with a new community you're not a part of. No one did anything wrong. No one failed. Your paths just split the way river branches do, naturally, quietly, inevitably. This is the kind of loss that isn't sharp, it's soft, like a sunset. You look back with gratitude, not regret. Not all friendships are meant to be lifelong. Some are meant to be seasonal gifts, arriving right on time, leaving when their chapter is complete. The friends you lose as you get older leave something behind, not emptiness, but space to breathe, space to reflect, space to choose people who meet you where you are now, not where you once were. There's a gentle concept sometimes called inner alignment, when your relationships begin to match your truest self. Losing friends is one of the ways life does this aligning for you. Painful? Yes, sometimes. Necessary? Often. Because as you age, friendship becomes less about quantity and more about resonance, the quiet feeling of being understood without having to shrink, stretch, or perform. If your circle has gotten smaller, let it. Not out of resignation, but out of recognition. You are older now, not in a diminishing way, but in a distilled way. Your life has become more concentrated, more intentional, more soulful. And you don't need a crowd for that. You just need the few who see you clearly, who don't flinch at your truth, who speak to the version of you that took a lifetime to grow into. Let the friends who drifted, drift. Let the ones who stayed, stay. And remain open, softly, slowly, bravely, to the new connections life still has for you. Because friendship, in later life, isn't about holding on. It's about inviting in what fits your soul now. And that is not loss. That is becoming.